Hi, this is Ed Gallagher, professor of Christian Scripture at Heritage Christian University. I'm sitting in the Overton Memorial Library on the campus of Heritage Christian in Florence, Alabama. And listen, if you live in the Shoals area and want to check out our library, you can come. Anybody in the community can come, go see Jamie Cox, the librarian, sign up for a library card, and you can check out some of these books that I'll be talking about. Or if you are a student of Heritage Christian University and you want to figure out how to get some of the physical books from the library, again, contact Ms. Cox and she can help you figure that out. Recently, the library got in a few more books that look interesting to me, as happens pretty frequently. And I just thought I'd pull a few of them from the shelves. These came in this week, just a couple of days ago. I've got five books here that I'm going to just mention. The first few are specific to Churches of Christ. The first one is by a fellow named Wes Crawford. He is a professor at Abilene. And indeed, this book is published by ACU Press. The book is called Courage in in the Sheer Silence. And what is the subtitle? Challenging Racism in 20th Century Churches of Christ. Now, it's not surprising Wes Crawford would publish on that. He's published on that before. His first book, I forget what it's called. I think it came out in 2014, and it's something along those lines also. But this one you can see how little it is. It's published this year, 2025. It's got, oh, let's see, the last page of text. Well, it does not have an index or anything. The last page of text is page 200. So, um, and it's got seven chapters. There's an introduction. There's seven chapters. And I will say the chapters are like, they have titles where you can't tell what it's actually about. Like chapter two, The Death. Well, I assume that probably has something to do with, like, I don't know, given the subject matter, let's say, well-meaning white people in Churches of Christ who just did not hear the call for racial justice, something along these lines. Chapter three, The Silent. Maybe that's about that topic. Chapter four, The Speech. Now, I did look at that one. I know that the speech, I mean, I thought, is this like the I Have a Dream speech or what is it? But no, it's a speech given by a guy named Carl Spain in 1960 at the Abilene lectureship, condemning, you know, segregation in Churches of Christ. Now, Wes Crawford reprints the speech in Appendix D. Well, I think that's what that is. Appendix D is something called Modern Challenges to Christian Morals by Carl Spain. I assume that is the speech. By the way, some of these appendices are really interesting. Like Appendix A is called Negro Meetings for White People by Foy Wallace Jr. That is, of course, a famous editorial that Foy Wallace wrote, what was it, 1941 or something like that. It is an absurd editorial that Wallace wrote, and it's one that actually elicited a response from Marshall Keeble, which is also now a very conciliatory response, I will say, from Marshall Keeble. That is also reprinted here and a few other things. This looks like a helpful book. The appendices start on page 147, so the main part of the book is like 150 pages. So it joins a steady stream of publications here recently on race relations in Churches of Christ. So I read one recently, Race and Restoration by Barclay Key, which was his dissertation, came out in 2020 with LSU Press. But this one by Wes Crawford looks good. It looks probably easy to read, so a good introduction to the subject. We're on the same subject with the next book. This one is by C. Leonard Allen, who is still the Dean of College at Lipscomb, Dean of College of the Bible at Lipscomb. And this one is specifically on Marshall Keeble, and it is interestingly called Faithful Defiance. I'm curious. I have not really looked at this book. You can see that it's short. I'm curious, what exactly do we mean by the word defiance? Because that's usually not what I would associate with the way Marshall Keeble is often represented. But that sounds interesting. It was also published by Abilene. 2025. And it is a collection of articles by different people, or a collection of essays, let's say, chapters by different people. So we've got Leonard Allen writing, David Holmes, Edward Robinson writes three of the chapters, no, four of the chapters. John Mark Hicks is in here, Tanya Smith Bryce, Jefferson Carruthers. So, Rita Cato Cochran wrote the appendix. All right. So, it looks like, well, anyway, yeah. So it looks like it would be a helpful. I mean, there are other books on Keble. Edward Robinson wrote a biography of Marshall Keble. That was probably 15 years ago that one was published. But this looks like a good and helpful book on Marshall Keble. Still in Churches of Christ here, this book is called A Voice in the Wilderness, an anthology in memory of Michael and Libby Weed. And it's edited by Keith Stenglin and Todd Hall. Now, let's see. Michael Weed, Libby is his wife. Look, I don't know a whole lot about this, but Michael Weed taught for a long time at a place that is now closed that was in Austin, Texas. It was called Austin Graduate School of Theology, I think is what it was called. And Keith Stenglin, I think Todd Hall also taught there, the editors of this volume. Now, Keith Stenglin, now the school closed down a few years ago, and Keith Stenglin and Todd Hall have joined up, and they're still in Austin, and they have created this thing called the Institute for Christian Studies, which you should check out. I mean, they've got a good website. Go on there and look at the resources they provide. And they're trying to continue the legacy of Austin Graduate School of Theology. Now, as part of Austin Graduate School of Theology, there was this journal published, and it was just called Christian Studies. And I think Michael Weed edited that journal for a time. And there is now the Institute for Christian Studies, which is the thing that was started in the wake of the demise of the Austin Graduate School of Religion or Theology, whatever it is. Keith Stenglin edits this journal called Journal of Christian Studies, which is the successor to the journal that was called Christian Studies. Okay, so this book is in honor of Michael and Libby Weed, but it is pulled from the articles from that older journal that was called Christian Studies. So, and a lot of the articles here are by Michael Weed. Let me see. We've got 15 chapters, and all the chapters are pretty short. I mean, these are essays, brief essays that are like on spirituality or on something to do with Christianity. And a good number of them, maybe about half, are by Michael Weed, but you also have an essay by James Thompson. You've got a few by Alan McNichol, Mark Shipp, Jeffrey Peterson, Keith Stenglin is in here, Daniel Austin Napier, and M. Todd Hall are also in here. And there's an introduction by Keith Stenglin. And at the end of the introduction, he says, the essays collected in this volume were all originally published in the Faculty Bulletin and Christian Studies, which ran 32 issues over a period of 40 years from 1980 through 2019. Okay, so again, these are not new articles, but there's still, I mean, there's a lot in that journal, Christian Studies, there's a lot of good stuff in there. So it's good that they have collected these together. These selections are offered here in chronological order. We have reformatted them. Okay, blah, blah, blah. This volume, presented in memory of Michael and Libby Weed, is intentionally partial to Michael's studies. The essays, spanning nearly 40 years, remain relevant and beneficial to the church today and are worth rereading. So let me just read you a couple of the titles here. So the first one, The Twilight of the Gods by Michael Weed. Not real sure what that's about. Chapter 2, The Secularization of the Church, From Transcendence to Technique by Michael Weed. Chapter 3 by Michael Weed, Amusing the Saints, Edification Without Transcendence That sounds interesting. I'm assuming that one is about how worship services have veered toward entertainment. But like I say, even if I'm not real sure what the essays are about by just looking at the titles, I'm confident all of these are probably worth reading. Chapter 7, Why Johnny Can't Pray by Michael Weed. Chapter 8, The Lord's Prayer, The Touchstone of Christian Spirituality by Alan McNichol. Okay, so a lot of good stuff in here. All right, we're leaving specifically Churches of Christ behind here in the next selection that I've got here. And this is a book that is actually not a new book, um, but the library just got this particular copy of it. Eric Cline, who is a professor of archaeology and such things at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. He wrote, actually 10 years ago, this book called 1177 BC, The Year Civilization Collapsed. And it was noticed, and it was a popular book in 2014 when it first came out, and it's published by Princeton. But in 2021, which is still 4 years ago, so not real recent, but sort of more recent at least. In 2021, he published this revised and expanded edition of the same book, and that's what the library just got in, this paperback version of it. And so it is, like I say, it is The Year Civilization Collapsed, according to Eric Cline. It's a history book. It's not, so much on theology, but history. 1177 BC, he's talking about of course, the Mediterranean world. So very relevant to biblical studies. You might be interested in that. A good popular history of that period. And the last book I've got here is one of these 5 views book. This one is 5 views on the gospel. Now, I haven't really looked at this book very much. It is edited by somebody named James Maston and Michael Bird. Michael Bird is real famous in biblical studies. James Maston less so. What are the 5 views, I hear you asking? All right, we've got Scott McKnight talking about the King Jesus gospel. We've got Michael Horton on the Reformation gospel. We've got David De Silva on the Wesleyan gospel. Now, those first 3, I mean, I can't tell you what the Wesleyan gospel is, and I can barely tell you what the Reformation gospel is. The King Jesus gospel, I think I could give a pretty decent account of that, probably. I'm assuming this is something like what Michael Bates talked about in his book on the gospel, whatever it's called. But what I was going to say, those first 3, those scholars are real famous. Scott McKnight, Michael Horton, David De Silva, definitely. But the next 2, I've never heard of these people, Julie Ma and Shively Smith. But anyway, Julie Ma is going to tell us about the Pentecostal gospel. No clue what Pentecostals how they define the gospel. I don't, is what I'm saying. I'm sure Julie Ma does. So, and then Shively Smith is going to talk about a liberation gospel view. And you know how these 5 views books work, right? Like you get here it is. You get a chapter on, in this case, Scott McKnight is the first chapter. He's going to tell you about the King Jesus gospel. And then you get responses to the same by all the other writers. And then you get the next person. Michael Horton is going to tell us about the Reformation gospel, and then the others are going to respond to him. And that's how it works for all 5. So at the end of those 5 views, 4 views, 3 views books, this is a series. There are a few series actually that do this same kind of thing. You get a lot better understanding of how the debate works and what are the issues that people find troublesome. So you might want to check that out if you're interested in the gospel, and I imagine you are because you are watching this.